Thank you for attending our very first Tune Up Tuesday segment of 2022. I'm Kelly Robert, and I'm the Journey Program Manager at UBT, and it is just amazing to have you here with us today. We have two really well-informed presenters. Today's segment is Tune Up Your Practices and Passwords, Safer Online Security. And we have a couple people with us that know just a little bit about that. We have Jenna Harris, who's the compliance team lead. Congrats, Jenna, on your new promotion.
Thank you.
And the financial crime specialist here at UBT. And we also have Brittany Kumm. Brittany is the Lincoln Regional Customer Service Manager. And she has quite the history here of helping people at the bank with their fraud issues. I need to, before we get started, I need to thank Nate Gleaves for joining us today. Nate, can we see your face for a minute? Hey there. He was the one asking about the elevator music a moment ago. Nate is the network service strategist, and he is just a network whiz. He's filling in today for Caitlin Moore, who usually helps with the Zoom portion of this series. And Caitlin is having some health issues, and we just wanted her to know that we're thinking of her. And we look forward to her return, but we are delighted to have Nate in the interim. So he'll be with us most of January. That was perfect. Thank you, Nate. Today's segment covers something that we all worry about. Everybody worries about online fraud and security, and there's, I think, as much misinformation, maybe more, out there than there is information. And we just wanted to clear up some of those muddy waters and help you do just everything you can to be safe in your banking practices, your online practices, social media. We want to take advantage of technology, but we want to do it safely and securely. So having said all that, I'll let people who really know their stuff talk about the topic a little bit more. Why don't you take it away, Jenna?
Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, so my name is Jenna Harris, and I work in the financial crimes area at Union Bank. Today, I'm going to go over some basics on having safe passwords, ways to prevent computer viruses, and I'm also going to go a little bit over what email phishing is, as well as some ways to stay safe on social media. So to kick it off, I'm just going to start with the basics of passwords. So in today's age, everybody has dozens and dozens and dozens of different accounts online. Every account is going to require you to set up a password. It's really important that you have a safe password for every account, whether it's your online banking at Union Bank or even something simple such as your login for Netflix. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, it is a resource that I recommend customers visit a lot, and I'm going to use a lot of tips that they recommend today on how to create safe passwords. So what makes a password strong? One thing is going to be that you have a long password. You're going to use a mix of upper and lower case letters, add in some numbers, some symbols. All of that is going to make it really difficult for somebody to be able to guess what your password is. They also recommend using hard to guess passwords. So that's not going to be using common phrases such as password or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's something that a lot of people use as their passwords, and fraudsters know to give that a shot if they ever want to try to get into somebody else's accounts. Also, something that would be easy for people to guess would be your name, even your date of birth, things like that. If it's something that people know about you, they might try to use that as your password to get into your accounts. Another really important thing when it comes to your passwords is to have a unique password for every website that you have an account for. The reason why it's important to have a unique password for every website is because what can happen, unfortunately, Websites information can be breached by hackers. And what happens there is they can get a list of all the passwords every user uses for that website. And what they'll try to do with that information, they'll take the email and password that somebody uses on one website and try it on hundreds of other websites to see if anything works. So what happens there, and it does happen quite frequently, when a customer uses the same password for every website, if one of those websites gets breached, sometimes those fraudsters will go to different online banking websites such as UBT.com and try that username and password combination again. So if that information is being reused, it does give the fraudsters one step closer to accessing your accounts. Along with using a strong password, it's very important to use strong security questions. So a lot of websites, when you're setting up your account for the first time, after they have you set up your username and password, they're going to have you select security questions. And what that does, if you're logging into that website with a new device, or if you have forgotten your password and you're taking the steps to reset your password, the website will ask you to answer one of the security questions that you set up at account opening. So it's one other step that the website has in place to try to verify that it's you logging in and not somebody else trying to get into your account. So a lot of times these security questions are preset and you have to pick from a list of security questions. A lot of them are going to be the same from site to site, such as your mother's maiden name or the first name of your niece, things like that. We always recommend when you're setting up your security questions and reading the options that you can choose from, really think about which ones you're choosing. Make sure that the answer is something that isn't easily guessable. For example, one option could be your mother's maiden name. Sometimes that information is really accessible on social media. Ask yourself, could somebody go on Facebook and see who I'm friends with, see my family members that I'm taking photos with and posting and tagging? Can they find the names of your nephew, maiden name, things like that? So just be cognizant of when you're setting up those security questions. Is it something somebody's going to be able to figure out pretty quickly online? And if so, maybe skip over that one. Find one that only you're going to truly know the answer to. Another part of having strong passwords and security questions, a lot of websites nowadays, they're going to have multi-factor authentication as an option. So I believe Brittany might touch over this a little bit later on, but I'll just briefly touch on it now. Multi-factor authentication. What that means is when you are logging into a website for the first time, a lot of the time, these websites will recognize your phone that you use to log in every single time. When it detects that a different phone is logging in, what kind of happens there is it triggers that website to know something's different here. We want to make sure we really have this person logging in and not somebody using their information. So a lot of times what happens, multi-factor authentication will send a message to a phone number, an email address, something that they know is truly belonging to you to have you verify that login. So you're logging in from a new device, it triggers multi-factor authentication, and you might get a text message asking, hey, did you log in from this new device? And it'll ask you to approve that login or not. So if ever on any of your accounts, whether it be through your bank's online banking or your cell phone accounts through Verizon or US Cellular, if turning on multi-factor authentication is an option, it's really wise to leave it on. And that's going to lead into my next topic, safely saving your credentials. So we touched a little bit on the importance of having unique passwords for every website that you use. That can be kind of hard to manage. I don't know about you guys, but I think I have about 100 different accounts I use online, and I cannot remember 100 different passwords. Instead of using the same password for every website, which would be the easiest thing, what I've grown into doing is using a password manager. What a password manager is, it's a website or an app. There's a bunch of different services out there that allow you to save your username and password for every website you want to add. So you can list facebook.com, put your login information there, your email account, your utility bill accounts, everything. It keeps it all in one place. You don't have to remember every password you've ever created. What you would do is You would set up your password manager account. You'd create a strong password to get into your password manager account, something unique, using all those tips we went over for setting up a strong password. Once you get into your password manager, you're going to have access to every password you've ever set up before. So you don't really have to remember every unique password you've created. You can just copy and paste it from that password manager, move over to that website you're trying to log into, and boom, you're in. Like I said, there's a lot of different products out there for password managers. So we recommend, if you're looking into setting up a password manager, definitely look around and see which ones you might want to look into using. Some of them do cost money. Some of them are free. There's a lot of good websites that review different technology that have some recommendations on some reputable password managers. You could also reach out to your family and friends and see if they use any password managers, and if there's a certain one that they use that you might be interested in. We just recommend doing your research and finding out which password manager you want to use. Maybe don't Google password manager and use the first one that pops up. It might not be right for you, and you want to make sure you're going through a reputable service. One thing that people actually don't know, iPhones and Androids, they actually have built-in password managers. And myself, I'm an iPhone user, and I use the built-in password manager on my iPhone. So my phone, I just go into the password manager. You can see a little image on this slide of what that looks like. You can add any account you use, save your username and password in there. Something that iPhone does, which is particularly impressive, if it detects that the password that you've saved in that password manager has ever shown up in a data leak or a breach, it'll tell you that that password may be compromised and recommend that you update that. So it not only stores your passwords, but it'll let you know if any of those might be compromised and if you should consider updating them. And Android, they also have a password manager built in, and it functions similarly. The next topic I'm going to touch on sounds a little scary. It's going to be computer viruses. Computer viruses, they sound very daunting. And if they ever happen to you, they can be a little scary. But not to be afraid, don't be afraid, because they really do happen to a lot of people every day. And there's a lot of steps you can do to prevent them from happening. If they do happen, though, it really isn't the end of the world. You can recover from it pretty quickly. So to start, how does your computer get a computer virus? It happens a couple of different ways. Essentially, you're going to be letting a file into your computer that you don't really recognize that contains the virus. And that can happen a couple different ways. If you are downloading things from unreputable websites, that's one way. So for example, sometimes people will go online and download free movies, free books, things like that. If ever it's something that's free and too good to be true, the file might be a virus. Another way you can get viruses, quite often your computer might get pop-ups with warnings that say security, or your computer has been infected, and it wants you to click and interact with that pop-up. And that usually is going to show up when you're surfing the internet. That pop-up, once you click into it, that'll download the virus to your computer. Ads on websites can be viruses. Not every ad on a website is a virus, but they can show up on there. Another way that people get them is by opening links or attachments in emails that they receive from fraudsters, which are called phishing emails. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that. I would say most often when I speak to customers who have gotten computer viruses, the way they got them is through phishing emails. So what phishing is, kind of a technical term, but phishing is an attempt by cyber criminals who are posing as legitimate institutions, usually by email, to obtain sensitive information from the targeted individuals. So what does that mean? It starts by these fraudsters, these attackers, sending emails out that contain links and attachments that have the viruses. And what they do, they'll just send it out to thousands of different email addresses. They don't really know you. They're just trying random emails to see which ones are active accounts and who's going to open the link. They usually make their emails look as though it's coming from somebody that the victim knows. They'll pose as your bank, Stores that you trust, such as Target, Walmart, Best Buy, they might pose as charities. Really any organization that people recognize widely, they'll try to make their email appear as though it's coming from that business and not a fraudster. They might use images of the business's logos. They'll look online for the correct information, such as phone numbers or addresses for that business, and copy and paste them into the email. They'll try to make it look as official as possible. And what those emails will want you to do, they usually will say something that there's along the lines of an urgent problem. Maybe your account is compromised, or maybe something's been charged to your credit card, some sort of problem that they need you to act quickly on. And in the email, they'll have some sort of verbiage, click here and we can assist you, or open this form, this attachment that's going to show you the charge that we're concerned about. They just want you to click that link or attachment without thinking, and download that virus to your computer. So with all of that in mind, on the couple different ways you can get viruses, how can you prevent this from happening now that you know what it is a little bit? Rule number one would be not to click any links or download anything that you aren't certain is legitimate. Think before you click, is the sender that you're receiving this from legitimate? How can I be sure that it's really my bank that's emailing me and not somebody that's posing as my bank? If you're online surfing, if something seems too good to be true, probably is, don't click that link either, things like that. When you're going through your emails and you're looking at one that you're not sure is from the company it says it is from. So for example, say you have an email from Union Bank and you want to be sure that that email is from Union Bank and not somebody else. The best way that you can validate if that email is from the real sender would be by calling the business directly to verify that that email is legit. Important step there, if you're going to call the business to verify the email is legitimate, don't call any phone numbers that are listed in the suspicious email. It's best to do an independent search on Google. Look up that business, find a correct number for them in whitepages.com, call that phone number and make sure that it's them. Or if you have that phone number saved in your phone, use your own contact. Don't use anything that's listed in the suspicious email. Most important, if you make a mistake, or if something happens where you do end up getting a virus, don't panic. It's fixable. There's a lot of people out there that this happens to, and it's usually not as life-altering as some people may think it's going to be. If you suspect that your computer has been infected with a virus, step number one would be just to stop using the device. Turn the computer off, and then when you have time, sooner than later, take the machine to a local repair shop to be cleaned. They can remove the virus pretty easily and reset your computer back to where it was before that virus was added. Another good tip on preventing viruses would be to install reputable antivirus software and keep it up to date. That can help you avoid downloading anything that isn't trustable. If you do download something online, your antivirus software may pop up a warning, hey, not so sure about this file. You might want to reconsider adding it. And then to conclude, I did want to touch on a few tips for staying safe on social media. Almost everybody uses social media these days. It's a great way to keep in touch with your friends and your family online. However, you do need to be aware that fraudsters also create profiles on social media, and they use that as a place to make connections with potential victims. What kind of happens here? I'm going to use Facebook as an example. Quite often, fraudsters will look for images on Google, and they'll create a name online, make a fake profile to find potential victims. What they end up doing is befriending these people. They send random friend requests online. They'll start conversations and seem really friendly, make it seem like it might be somebody that you knew from long ago, or maybe a new friend. What they end up doing is asking for money, for personal information, bank account numbers. They might ask for usernames and passwords to your social media, your email, or even your online banking. They don't ask for this outright. they're going to build a rapport with you and then eventually gain your trust and start asking you to give little bits and pieces here. Essentially, they want to get as much information as they can so that they can try to take over your bank accounts, or they might try to conduct fraudulent transactions in your name. Sometimes they'll even use all that information to steal someone's identity. So we always recommend social media is great. I have a social media profile, I think, on every platform out there. You just need to remember it's best not to add anyone you don't personally know as a friend. And also, don't give anybody any of your sensitive information out through messages, even if it's somebody that you do personally know. What sometimes happens if your friends' accounts get hacked and they ask you for something personal that you know you would trust with that person, online, you might not actually be talking to that person. You could be talking to a fraudster who has taken over their account. So best thing, leave any of your private information offline. Save that for in-person interactions with your friends, with your banks, things like that. I think that's my conclusion of my presentation. And I was going to turn it over to Brittany here. Let me stop sharing. Hopefully that worked.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenna. I'm sorry, everybody, that you cannot see my face. I was having some computer issues, so instead you get the lovely looks of Jenna and Kelly. And I guess you got to see Nate for a little bit, so if he's up your alley and you think he's attractive, I'm glad you got to see him as well. But I want to kind of tag on to really what Jenna ended her presentation with on Facebook and social media and best practices as we look into UBTgo and ways we can protect ourselves online. And my main thing is limiting the social on social media. So I know we have probably all seen these quizzes pop up, wanting to know your first job, your favorite food, color, pet's name, all that fun stuff that we really want to get to know other people and connect with, especially through COVID. It was so much fun to do these quizzes. But as you can see, the answer's on the right-hand side. Stop giving people your personal information. Just as Jenna stated, a lot of these answers can be used to guess your passwords, they can be used for your security questions, and ultimately can just be used against you to maintain that friendship through Facebook and social media. One of the things that I do on my own Facebook account is I will actually go in and adjust my privacy settings so that even though someone from high school might want to connect with me, they're even limited in what they can see. They can generally see my immediate profile picture and name, but maybe they can't see some of the posts that I have out there. So if you're someone that really loves these quizzes and wants to maintain them and keep doing them, I would maybe go ahead and go back to your privacy settings on Facebook and at least adjust what those people can see, but really take this to heart when releasing your information. So when I talk about UBTgo, that is the platform that we use for online and mobile banking, and I always feel as though your UBTgo connection should be unique to you. And what I mean by that is your connections, when you enroll, you're typing in your personal and account information, and we take that social security number and then your customer name, and that is what links you to the accounts that you can see. So I threw out a scenario with our friends, the Flintstones, where Fred opens a joint account with his daughter Pebbles. He wants to teach her how to manage her own money, and it's the only account that he shares with his daughter. But he just so happens to have a joint checking account with his wife Wilma. Then he has a savings account in his own name. Wilma separately has a savings account as well. So UBTgo, the online connection, was registered using Fred's personal information, and then he shared it with his daughter and wife. What kind of risk, what kind of problems can that create? A lot, unfortunately. So if Fred has created this connection and shared it, his daughter Pebbles can see the joint account that she has with her dad, but now can see the joint account that is with her parents, which she's not listed on. His wife Wilma, well, she can also access Fred's accounts, including that joint one with Pebbles, and she's unable to see her own accounts. It sounds like a lot going on, but it does create a lot of risk, and that's something that we do encounter in the customer support team. For example, if we look at Fred and Wilma here, if Fred and Wilma have a joint account, Wilma has her own, but they're using Fred's connection, she can actually access Fred's account and transfer money back and forth. So we really want to encourage every customer to register for online banking in their own name and own social security number, knowing that that would limit the accounts that they can view and act upon. As Jenna mentioned, we did transition over to multi-factor authentication last year, and part of that was to replace those standard security questions, but this MFA does provide for some more secure verification within our UBTgo. What is MFA? It's a verification process, and it requires a user or customer to provide two pieces of information, basically to be verified. So when you log into UBTgo, the first part of verification are your login credentials, and then followed by the MFA that you choose. So again, we promote MFA because it's needed to ensure proper verification, and it helps to prevent fraud using those standard security questions that we're so used to using. In Union Bank, we actually offer 3 forms of MFA. We let our customer choose. We don't rank a preference over one over another. The most popular would be text or SMS. So when you go to log in, if you are prompted for an MFA code, you simply type in your phone number, and it needs to be a cell phone when doing a text. You type in your number, a code is generated, and you type that in upon your login. Our second most popular is going to be voice call. You can use this with a landline or a cell phone. Same concept, in which you type in the phone number you want to receive a call on, and you will get a recorded call that simply reads a code to you that you can write down and then type as you log in. And then last but certainly not least is we have what's called an authenticator app. Google has a very common one, Google Authenticator. And what this requires is on your own device is you're going to download a separate app. So when you log into UBTgo and are prompted for a code, this Google Authenticator app will generate a 5 to 6 code number for you that you then type in to ensure that you can log into your connection. Now, the MFA does not prompt with every login. There are some parameters in place so that customers are not burdened with a login prompt every time. But if you're using a different Wi-Fi, for example, if you're traveling domestically or internationally, our system is designed to recognize those changes and will spur on that MFA prompt for your login. So outside of using MFA, how does Union Bank as a whole verify you when you call in and chat? So the first team I think of is our customer support team, and you can reach out to our specialists over the phone and through online chat. And we start to ask for an account number or a debit card number. We ask for your social security number and an out-of-pocket question. We understand that social security number is very sensitive, and if you ever place a call with us and you don't feel comfortable releasing your full social security number, by all means, just let us know. We'll take the last 4, but we do ask for at least part of that social security number within our verification. Some of you might wonder, what exactly are you looking for when you say out-of-pocket question? That is generally a question that's related to your account that would be hard for a fraudster to know or find on social media. So we might ask you, what branch did you open your account at? Or what personal banker helped you open your account? We're not going to ask questions such as your address, date of birth, or phone number, simply because that information can be obtained through social media profiles. But I also think back, if you were to lose a check, or if your license had been misplaced, that is all information somebody could get from your driver's license, stolen wallet, and we want to make sure that we're not asking things that can be easily found. Outside of a customer support team, you might think, well, what if I go into a branch? What's really great about our branches is a lot of them have really great relationships with their customers, and they know you as soon as you walk in the door. So they might ask you for your account number and that be it. But I do know that branches that do not know a customer, they haven't worked with them previously, they'll ask for account number and social security number as well as for a picture ID until they establish that relationship. But what do we do? What does customer support do if they truly think they're speaking to a fraudster? Well, our detective skills kick into high gear. We stop the conversation immediately, and we're going to tell that caller or chatter that they need to come into a branch because we can't assist them, and they are to go in with a picture ID. Unfortunately, fraudsters can be rather persistent, but so can we. We are very direct. We don't like to be bullied, and we're going to ensure that our customer is not taken advantage of. After we end that call or chat, we will actually call our customer using the phone number that we have on file for you and let you know what just happened, just to make sure your information has not been compromised, but to make sure that you are aware of the call or chat that we received. What I'd like to plug with this is, as Jenna mentioned, there's different breaches that can occur. They can happen through Social Security Administration, they can happen through employers, retirement plans. If you are ever notified that your personal information has been impacted, and let's say it's with an employer, you should certainly give Union Bank a call. We can place a note on your account or a warning on your account so that we know, hey, Kelly's information may have been compromised. We probably need to ask some additional out-of-pocket questions. Even though your bank account wasn't impacted, your sensitive information was, and we want to make sure that we keep you protected. Along those lines, we like to also think about protecting yourself with debit card and credit card fraud. And so this is great and probably something we should have shown around the holiday time, at least for me. But just some ways to avoid fraud on your cards is obviously keeping your credit cards, debit cards safe. Once you've used your card, whether you've had to swipe it or type it in online, make sure you're storing that back in a safe place. Don't allow websites to remember your card number. And this one's kind of confusing because I think of myself, I have an Amazon Prime membership and I allow them to store my credit card because I have a recurring payment. That's different in the fact that this is a reputable merchant, I'm agreeing to these services, but if I'm going to a website to maybe make a one-time purchase for a pair of socks, for example, I don't think it's necessarily imperative that they go ahead and keep my card number as well. So try not to allow websites to remember any of your card information. In that same lines, we want to be a little wary when we're shopping online, especially with websites that you have not navigated before. If you're using a safe and secure website, if you look across the top at the URL or the website address bar, you'll find that there should be an HTTPS followed by the web address, as well as an image of a lock on the far right of that web address field. If those things are missing, I would stop the interaction. You can always reach out to Union Bank to look at the website with you and maybe look at the legitimacy, but I would definitely look for those two things, along with what Jenna said about making sure not to accept pop-up blockers or requests to assist with any sort of maintenance on your computer. You want to make sure that you also report any lost or stolen cards immediately. You can reach out to customer support 7 days a week. They have extended hours and can certainly help to take care of that. If for some reason you are traveling, it's after hours, and you cannot connect with customer support, if you log into your UBTgo app or on the computer, we do have a debit card control option where you can freeze your card. That way it'll stop any kind of fraudulent activity until you've found your card or until you can connect with Union Bank to get that new card. And additionally, you should always review your monthly bill if it's a credit card or your monthly statement if it's using a debit card. A lot of banks do have timelines as far as how long we can dispute activity, and currently that runs at about 60 days. So we want to make sure that if you are alerted to fraud or you identify fraud on your account, we have enough time to actually go in and help you recoup those funds back to your account. Along with that, Union Bank does offer fraud alerts, and so what that is we actually have a fraud team that will look for suspicious activity. And so what we'll do is we will actually text or call our customer to verify if the attempt was valid. So some things that you might think of. The location of the merchant is huge. Online transactions, specifically international transactions, those are going to create a fraud alert. It's going to want us to connect with you. But also the number of attempts made. So for example, if you're making a transaction or a fraudster is, and you're making 5 transactions in the amount of $500 within 4 or 5 minutes, that's a red flag for us. Also followed by the dollar amount of that transaction. And then additionally, if you do receive a fraud alert and you call or text back our fraud team and say, hey, I did not do this, they will close your card immediately to prevent any attempts of fraud, but they will also tell you that you're going to need to get a new debit card since it has been shut down. If this were to happen to you, you can actually connect with customer support. We can absolutely get a new card created and mailed to you within a couple of days. But what's really great about Union Bank is you can also stop into your local branch and we can have a card made for you instantly. Additionally, with that, as we stated earlier, even though this attempt did not go through, we still want our customers to review at least the last 2 account statements, because just because our fraud team caught maybe 1 or 2 transactions, there could have been smaller dollar transactions that inadvertently slipped through. So you'll want to make sure to review that and connect with your local branch or customer support team, and we can help, again, do that dispute for you and get those funds back into your account. That was all I had with regards to debit card fraud, UBTgo connections. Kelly, did you want to take care of any questions we might have gotten throughout the presentation?
Sure, I have just a couple here, Brittany, and I wanted to say that it's really too bad that we didn't get to see you because sorry, well, there we go, because you are aesthetically pleasing. So another time. The questions that I have are, what length is recommended for passwords? And I don't know which of you want to take that, but I think a lot of people want to know.
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that. I wouldn't say that there's a specific number that's going to mean your password is more secure. Most websites, they're going to have a minimum number of characters that you need to use. I think most websites recommend 8. Maybe doing more than the minimum requirement for the password for that website would be best. But as long as you're mixing in, uppercase and lowercase letters and different numbers and different symbols, that's going to be the biggest piece that's going to help you have a unique password that's going to be safer. So I guess probably more than the minimum that the website requires.
Okay, great. Thank you. The other question was, how often does UBT encounter fraudsters, either over the phone or in the branch? And I don't know how easy it would be for you to answer that, but perhaps you could share with us maybe the documented number of cases of bank customers in the last year.
And maybe Brittany might have a good idea for customer support team. I didn't bring the number of cases of documented fraudsters that we had last year with me. I wish I had now. I would say, a guess, most fraudsters would just call in. Most people aren't going to come into the branch. It's usually over the phone. And I would say it might pop up every few weeks that somebody might try to pose as a customer. It's not too often. So our team's pretty good about catching it. So I would say that probably is the reason why people don't call in so often, thinking that they're going to be able to pass as the customer, but it does happen every few weeks or so. I don't know, Brittany, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say as far as actual calls and chats with fraudsters, it probably is every few weeks, and it's great because we get to work with Jenna's team when we find out about a fraud situation, so we get to tag team that. I would say dealing with actual scams, having customers call and question, maybe a check that they received or request that they received, that probably happens more frequently than actually getting a fraudster to call or chat in with us. That probably happens at least once or twice a week. And not necessarily saying that fraud has occurred, but maybe they just received a check and customers are inquiring about it. They want to make sure it's legitimate before they go ahead and process or deposit that check.
Good. Thank you both for your input on that. I do know that there is really no shame. I think people are kind of embarrassed. Isn't that correct, when fraud happens to them? But I've known of incredibly intelligent and together people that have slipped and given information to a fraudster, lost some money or had their identity stolen. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to tackle this topic today, is as I'm really, really proud of where I work and the lengths that we go to protect our customers and to help them get out of that quagmire once they're in. But I know that it does happen.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And also, I know that the fraud alerts on our debit cards work because Brittany knows, because she used to work right next to me. I'm a huge QVC shopper. Not that this is a plug for QVC, but that means that when the charges come out of my account, I'll have several small ones right in a row. And usually I get an alert that questions what's going on in my account. That's not that they're a great deal of money, but there's a whole bunch of them at once. And now that I'm divulging this about myself, I'm wondering if we shouldn't edit this in the final copy of of this segment. Anyway, I'm checking the chat feature and I don't see any more questions. Ladies, you did a fantastic job today. Thank you so very, very much. Jenna Harris and Brittany Kumm. They sure know a lot, and I'm always pleased when they're willing to come on and share information. Thanks to all of you for sharing your Tuesday afternoon with us. We sure appreciate you. I'm hoping you can tune in next week when we have our favorite Hy-Vee dietitian, Jen Donovan, and she'll be talking about tuning up your nutrition. Just small tweaks that make a big difference. Thanks again to Nate Gleaves for helping us out today, and we'll see you next week. Take care.